I went to a village in the lovely southern part of England. The village was called Goldsfir. I exited the remover truck and the village welcomed me with open arms. Said I was welcome to stay and that my little cottage was just next door to my neighbor, Percy. Suddenly, Percy said hello to me and tipped his farmer's hat. He looked like a hard-working fellow. He was big and strong. He even claimed to be in the farming business for 20 years. That's when I fell in love. So, one day I walked down to my cottage and Percy was just fixing his tractor. It was a lovely looking tractor and Percy kissed it better after it hit the mud. Now, that was a man with emotion and care. He waved hello and I waved back. I fell in love with Percy, so later that night, I confessed that I, surely, loved him with all my heart. He began to sweat nervously and confessed that he loved me too, but something was off, something was there. Who could it be? I did not have a clue. Next morning, a loud knock occurred at my door. It was the mayor. He wanted a word with me in his office. He shouted furiously and told me that neighbors falling in love is forbidden and that I should be ashamed, along with Percy. So, he made us work for an entire week. Percy was upset and I told him to pack his things. We will run to the city of nowhere, Polis, a city where me and Percy could live in peace. Percy was afraid that the village could catch up if our neighbor love was not put to bed. As a hard-boiled Shirley, I told him to calm down and follow me. Percy nodded his head in agreement and took me to his tractor. Percy's tractor was massive, but it was good enough for us to escape from the harsh village of Shit, I forgot the name. Never mind, we could escape from this harsh village, but suddenly, the mayor and the villagers, angry that we are leaving. Percy screamed at them all, told him that he did not believe in a village where connections between neighbors was forbidden. The mayor was dumbfounded by the claims. Then the mayor called me a wicked witch from the city. Again, Percy screamed so furiously that his buttoned shirt was torn by the gust of anger. He then drove his tractor all the way to the city as fast as he could. The mayor was angry and decided to sleep it off, as the other villagers remained. They would not forget the forbidden neighbors, known as Shirley and Percy, who left the village to live in a peaceful, loving city. The villagers began to plant bird seeds, hopefully to rebuild the phoenix, like that would ever happen. So, me and Big Farmer Man, Percy, stayed in a high-end apartment, away from the troubles and doubles that we had to face in that freaky village until the phoenix risen. The end. Months after we escaped from the village, me and Percy lived our peaceful lives in the hustling and bustling city. Percy managed to save up for a room for us to get business done in, if you know what I mean. However, Percy had an odd desire, an odd kink. He was into sunflower oil. He wanted to be bathed in it. This was not what I had in mind when it comes to fun. Suddenly, just as I was about to pour the sunflower oil onto Percy, I heard a loud roaring screech. It was something dangerous and it didn't sound too happy. Percy got up out of the metal tin bath and got his farming gear on. He told me to stay put. Why does he tell me, Shirley, to stay put? I disobeyed and began to follow him. He screamed and ran behind the couch. Thinking he was playing a prank, I laughed until I was wrong. I saw a massive phoenix flying over the city. Where did it come from? Percy told me to hide because the phoenix was so huge that it could eat us. So, I hid with him. "Mummy, help me," echoed one citizen before he was gobbled up by the phoenix. I asked Percy if he knew about the creature. He said it might have come from the village, since they had a massive shed of bird seeds. I was not a happy woman and asked Percy if he had a car. He said no, but he has his tractor. So, we drove the tractor back to the village of whatever the bloody fuck it's called and confronted the mayor. The mayor appeared to be drunk as a skunk. "So, you came back," he muttered. "Have you thought over about your neighborly love sins?" Percy, offended by his comment, prepped his fists. I stopped Percy before he got violent. I asked the drunkard where the phoenix came from. The drunk mayor smirked and started laughing like a stereotypical supervillain. He said he had nothing to do with the phoenix, but the villagers did. The villagers were obsessed with us leaving the village in love, and they disliked it so much that they built the phoenix by planting bird seeds. Insane idea for a village, I said. The mayor laughed and shouted that it was a huge mistake. We came back because, right behind me, the phoenix found us. Percy's shirt ripped off in anger and screamed so loud at the phoenix that it fell to the ground. "How on earth did you do that, Percy?" I shouted. As Percy was about to give me a lengthy description of how he did it, he was devoured by the phoenix as a surprise attack. I cried and shouted, "No, Percy." The mayor laughed and transformed into a vampire. It was Dracula all along. "Nice to bite you," said Dracula. I screamed and fainted. "We'll surely get out of this village and save Percy." Is Percy alive? Is Dracula the mastermind? Find out in the next episode. The end. Dum dum duh. Days after I fainted, I found myself inside a small dungeon. "Ugh, what happened?" I said. I heard the door creak ever so loudly and I was startled by who was coming. "Where is Percy?" I shouted. It was only Jungkook. He only accidentally wandered in and then walked back out. "Oh shit, am I trapped down here forever?" I cried and begged Percy to scream so loudly that this dungeon collapses. Meanwhile, on the upper floor, there were groans and moans coming from the lair room. A huge man was tied up to a spinning wheel with a panda mask on. You know, those zoo mascot masks. Dracula began throwing bird seeds at the man and demanding to know why he left the village for a silly woman like Shirley. The man said he didn't have a clue why and he would come back to the village. Jungkook came in with Santa Claus and Dracula asked them both to do their jobs. Jungkook started dancing while Santa Claus started prepping up the balloons. Dracula started to laugh and noticed that a few more individuals were missing. Annoyed, so he summoned them with his power. He had summoned the massive phoenix, Mr. Blobby, Marilyn Monroe, Commander Shepard, Kanye West, Peter Pan, Scooby-Doo, Markley the cat, and a tiny bird named Richard. Richard, however, was eaten by Markley. So, these were Dracula's minions. Jungkook, Santa Claus, Markley, Commander Shepard, Scooby-Doo, Marilyn Monroe, Kanye West, Peter Pan, Mr. Blobby, and the toughest of them all, the massive phoenix named Greg. There was also Richard the small bird, who unfortunately did not see his first mission. Suddenly, the panda mask fell off. It was Percy all along. "Thank heavens, I can breathe again," said Percy. So, what did he do? He screamed so loudly that the spinning wheel broke and he was released from this evil device. Dracula, angry with what is going on, he commanded Kanye West to put Percy on the seesaw. Percy distracted Kanye West with a pair of Yeezys. "Holy shit, my merch," said Mr. West. He ran after his merch. Dracula was getting batshit angry and unironically commanded Commander Shepard to pursue Percy, who was making a run for it. Shepard accepted the task, bringing Scooby-Doo, Marilyn Monroe, and Peter Pan. Dracula told Santa Claus, Jungkook, and Markley to go down to the dungeon to retrieve Shirley, also known as the narrator of this story. Jungkook ignored him and Markley had disappeared. So Santa Claus went all by himself. As for Richard, nothing could be done, so Dracula told the Phoenix to eat him and stay with him. Phoenix agreed. As for Jungkook, Dracula fired him from his job, but Jungkook still kept dancing. Dracula called the BTS agent to take Jungkook to the nearest stadium to perform, and the tour bus came. Meanwhile, downstairs in the creepy dungeon, I was getting cold. My tears were not easing whatsoever. I heard loud footsteps. Was it Jungkook again? No, it was Santa Claus. What are you doing here? I said. Santa Claus, seeing that I was tied up, felt disappointed in Dracula and expressed his deepest apologies. Santa untied me from the wall and told me that Percy, my love, is still alive. I was so happy. So, me and Santa had exited the dungeon. Santa said that the basement was like a maze, but rather than it being fun, it was scary as fuck. Santa put his hands on his mouth when he swore. He must have been watching Wolf of Wall Street. Suddenly, we heard a no. It came from the distance and echoed so hollowly. It was a cat, a big fluffy cat. I asked him if he would like to come with us. He said no and kept repeating it. We asked Cat if he was alright. He said no. I bet it was Dracula that upset him. So, the cat was looking at me and started licking his own face. Now, that is a fluffy cat. Santa Claus, furious that we are waiting around, shouted, "Come on, lassie. Do you want to get caught by Mr. Blobby?" I was confused by what he meant until I heard the word Blobby. The cat arched its back and ran down to the basement in fear. It was massive, it was pink. It was Mr. Blobby, and he was not screwing around. "Blobby," muttered Mr. Blobby. Santa, coming prepped, took out his frying pan. He told me to run up ahead and get to Percy. So I ran. Mr. Blobby got his sword. Santa ran up to Mr. Blobby and they scuffled for 5 minutes until Mr. Blobby was victorious in the fight. Until he passed out. Santa was victorious, however he was hurt, so he ran up out of the basement. The cat, seeing Mr. Blobby, ate him. Percy was running around the house, trying to search for a place to hide from Commander Shepard, Marilyn Monroe, Scooby-Doo and Peter Pan. They were all after Percy. "Seesaw time," shouted Peter Pan in excitement. Scooby-Doo, angry by Peter Pan's giddiness, told him to shut up. Commander Shepard told him both to calm down. Marilyn Monroe waited till it was time to find Percy. Percy was searching through the cupboards, a distraction that he could use. He found sunflower oil. Maybe this could... Wait, no. George Michael's Careless Whisper started to play when Percy visioned himself doused in sunflower oil. Marilyn Monroe heard a creak from the basement door. It was Shirley. Marilyn Monroe began to chase her down. Commander Shepard and Scooby-Doo followed the music. As for Peter Pan, he climbed out of the window and said "fuck you all," then flew off until the Phoenix ate him. "No one escapes from my job like that," laughed Dracula. Santa Claus climbing up the basement stairs. He was losing energy and needed bandages quickly. As Santa found a medkit in the middle of the hall, the Dracula appeared. "So, we have a traitor amongst us," said Dracula. Santa angrily said that they trapped a woman down in the dungeon, so Dracula himself must pay. Dracula laughed and said, "So be it." He disappeared and turned into Stone Cold Steve Austin. Santa Claus turned into Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The Phoenix was getting hungry. Shirley ran into the library. She was surrounded by thousands of books. Marilyn Monroe entered the scene and chased her throughout the library. I picked up a book called History Book 101, which was magical. It sucked Marilyn Monroe back into the history book and pulled out Genghis Khan. I used the book again and it sucked him back into the history book and pulled out Hagrid. Hagrid thanked me for freeing him from the history book as someone in the history department mistaken him for Odin, king of the Norse gods. Hagrid went off his merry way. So, Shirley went on to proceed and search for Percy. She heard a scream, but it sounded very different to Percy's screams. He usually does it so loudly. 10 minutes before Hagrid was free, Commander Shepard and Scooby-Doo investigated the kitchens. Scooby decided to search for Scooby snacks. He found some mushrooms, although they were delicious. He could understand why Shaggy looked so high all the time. Scooby saw spaceships, aliens, marmalade monsters, and some Scooby snacks. He ran after the Scooby snacks, only to run out and smashing the window. I wonder how much Dracula paid for those. Then Scooby-Doo ran off to the distance, only to be gobbled up by the Phoenix. Commander Shepard began searching room by room, little by little. He could hear a moistly feel and the ambient sounds of Careless Whisper's saxophone. Commander Shepard readied his laser. He entered the last kitchen, only to be traumatized. He saw Percy wiping down the sunflower oil on his own entire body. His belly was shiny and he started getting it on with himself. Percy rubbed the sunflower oil some more, and as he slapped himself, he went yeah. Commander Shepard, traumatized by what he has witnessed, screamed in horror. Commander Shepard dropped his laser and ran out the same way Scooby did. The Phoenix did not eat him, but that means nothing. Commander Shepard was taken by a UFO. Everyone was taken care of except for Dracula and the Phoenix. Dracula, fighting as Steve Austin, was getting weaker. Same for Santa, who was fighting as The Rock. They turned back to their normal forms and started slapping each other, hoping one of them knocks themselves out. I entered the hall and I saw Santa fighting Dracula. This was a dark but intense battle amongst two forces of good and evil. The Phoenix had entered the room, hungry for even more. Marquis had entered the room but watched from a distance. Suddenly, Percy barged into the hall with his sunflower-tainted body, and Dracula, so grossed out by what he saw, fainted. The Phoenix, offended by what he saw, lunged at Percy. Percy screamed so loudly at the Phoenix that the Phoenix started to crumble into stone. The Phoenix was finished, and unfortunately, Santa was almost reaching that fate. Me, Marquis and Percy approached Santa Claus. Santa's last words were Happy Easter and have a good Merry Christmas before he turned into gold dust. Percy cried his eyeballs out that the sunflower oil started to form and create a new Santa Claus. He was resurrected by the sunflower oil of Percy. Celebrating in victory, Dracula muttered his last words. We are fools for believing that he was the true mastermind, that the mastermind was none other than Ralph Wiggum, who then proceeded through the halls with his giant blue mech. It was unbelievable. I thought we could go home. Is this it? Find out in TH. No wait. We are finishing this shit story. Right here and now. As Ralph was about to monologue, we evaporated him with Percy's screams of justice. Shirley and Percy got married. We adopted Marquis, began a family, and Santa became both our butler and landlord. The fucking end. No, that's the end. I had it with this shit story. It should have ended at the first episode, but no, the fucking Phoenix, and what for exactly? This is way worse than The Room. It makes The Room look like a fucking masterpiece, a gem, the Mona fucking Lisa. Why are we still here? Percy, stop rubbing that oil down your L, you know what. Do that, Percy. I don't give a shit. Rant over. This was fucking awful. The end.